Hello there, ghouls and gals. Welcome back to Cafe Crashdown, your haunted hideaway for all things horror, strange, and, well, spine-tingling. I'm Kayla, your guide into the eerie and unknown. If you're new here at Cafe Crashdown, it's where we dive into horror. It's films, it's legends, and things that keep us up at night. And today, well, for one, I am in a completely new set. We are doing some construction right now where my current set is, so we got a new backdrop. But most importantly today, we're unraveling one of the most unsettling and deeply rooted subgenres of all. Folk horror is a genre that whispers forgotten truths. It tells us that beneath the surface of the modern world, something ancient still stirs. It's the fear of isolation, of rural superstition, of traditions older than memory itself. This isn't just about haunted forests and pagan rituals. It's about what happens when we cling to the old ways that should have died long ago. It's about places where time stands still and outsiders are not welcome. So get comfortable, but definitely not too comfortable, because we're about to step off the path and into the wild, the untamed world of folk horror. First, we're going to explore its dark origins. Then, I'm going to give you 5 underrated folk horror films that deserve a place on your watch list. So, let's turn down the lights, step into the midst, and let's begin. Folk horror, why does it scare us? Folk horror is one of the most deeply rooted subgenres in horror because it draws from something real, history, folklore, and the lingering fear of the unknown. To understand folk horror, you have to go way back, before there were cities, before technology, before rational thinking took hold. Humans told stories to explain the darkness around them. They feared what they couldn't control: nature, spirits, the wrath of the gods. Folk horror thrives on this fear of the past. It reminds us that no matter how modern we may think that we are, there are places where ancient customs still rule, where nature is a force beyond our control, and where forgetting the old ways can be dangerous. So let's talk about the Unholy Trinity, the 3 films that defined folk horror. So the term folk horror didn't exist until later, but its foundations were laid by 3 films in the late 1960s and early 1970s, now known as the Unholy Trinity. You have Witchfinder General 1968, a grim, brutal story about power, paranoia, and persecution during the English Civil War. It's not supernatural horror, just the terrifying reality of religious hysteria and mass executions. We then have The Blood of Satan's Claw, which was 1971, a twisted tale of demonic possession and mob mentality in a secluded village, proving that sometimes the greatest horrors don't come from outsiders. They come from within. And then, of course, we have The Wicker Man 1973, the crown jewel of folk horror, where a rigid Christian police officer ventures into a remote island to investigate a missing child, only to discover that the community has a very different set of beliefs and a chilling plan. With these 3 films, they establish the core themes of folk horror: rural isolation, ancient rituals, and a slow burning descent into absolute dread. So why is folk horror so unsettling? It works because it taps into 3 deep-rooted fears: isolation, tradition, and nature as a malevolent force. You have isolation, right? So the small, insular communities where time has stood still. No phones, no help coming, no way out, the feeling that you don't belong. You then have tradition and ritual. The past isn't just remembered, it's enforced. Old ways, old laws, unbreakable customs. These aren't just stories, they are life and death. And then, of course, we have nature as a malevolent force. The land isn't just a backdrop, it's alive, it's aware, and it does not want you here. That's what makes folk horror so powerful. It doesn't rely on the monsters, right? The horror is buried in belief and superstition, and the feeling that something ancient and unseen is still watching. Okay, so you already know The Wicker Man. Of course, if you're watching this, you've probably seen Midsommar, but let's talk about 5 folk horror films that deserve way more attention. First off, we have Eyes of Fire, 1983. It's definitely a forgotten American nightmare. Folk horror isn't just a British or European tradition, it runs deep in American history too. Eyes of Fire is set in 1750s colonial America, where a group of religious exiles escapes persecution and ventures into the untouched wilderness to start a new life. But the land they enter, it isn't empty. It's already claimed by something much older than them. At first, the settlers believe that they're simply being haunted by their own sins and paranoia, but as time passes, the forest begins to show its true nightmarish form. The trees whisper, figures appear in the mist, and reality itself starts to bend. Are they losing their minds, or is it the land rejecting them? This film captures the raw, untamed fear of being deep in the unknown, where civilization means nothing. It also taps into Native American folklore, making the land itself a living, breathing force. Eyes of Fire was practically lost for decades, overshadowed by the mainstream horror of the 80s. But if you love films like The Witch and Blair Witch Project, this is a must-watch. So we've got Borderlands 2013. It's when found footage meets folk horror. So if you think folk horror is just about eerie forests and pagan cults, think again. The Borderlands takes us into a crumbling English church where a team of Vatican investigators is sent to verify a supposed miracle. What they find instead? A horror beyond their understanding. At first, the team treats it as, just a joke, another hoax, or another false claim. But as their camera equipment picks up strange sounds, doors lock on their own, and the priest in charge seems, off. They begin to suspect that this isn't just some religious delusion. Found footage perspective adds a chilling realism, pulling you directly into the investigation. But what really makes this film unforgettable? The ending. Definitely without spoilers, okay? But I will just say it contains one of the most disturbing final sequences in folk horror history. The Borderlands was buried under the wave of paranormal horror in the 2010s, but trust me, this is folk horror at its most claustrophobic, creeping, and utterly terrifying. All right, next up we have Apostle 2018. So we have the Wicker Man that showed us the horror of isolated cults, but Apostle takes that concept and drenches it in blood, okay? This Netflix original follows a man who travels to a remote island to rescue his kidnapped sister, only to uncover a horrifying religious sect that worships something far, far, far older than God itself. The film starts as a slow burn mystery, but as the layers peel back, we realize this isn't just about human devotion. Something is feeding off of these people, something ancient, something that demands sacrifice. The sheer brutality of Apostle sets it apart. Folk horror often relies on atmospheric and slow dread. This film, it gets graphic, okay? Torture, sacrifice, bloody horror. This movie does not hold back. Apostle blends cult horror, folk horror, and body horror into one unforgettable experience. It didn't get as much attention as Midsommar, but trust me, it is just as disturbing. Next, we have November 2017, a dark fairy tale of spirits and sins set in a rural Estonian village. November blends horror, fantasy, and folklore, creating an eerie black and white dreamscape where people steal from spirits, perform bizarre rituals, and try to outwit the supernatural forces surrounding them. At its core, the film follows a forbidden love story, but the real horror comes from the inescapable pull of superstition and fate. The villagers think they control the magic around them, but in reality, they are nothing more than pawns in a world they barely understand. The film's haunting visuals and surreal storytelling make it feel like watching a long-lost folktale come to life. There are no jump scares, just an overwhelming sense that you are witnessing something both beautiful and deeply, deeply wrong. November is one of the most unique folk horror films ever made, yet most horror fans have never even heard of it. If you want a film that feels like stepping into a cursed fairy tale, this is definitely the one. And last up, we have The Wind 2018. Set in the 1800s America frontier, The Wind follows Lizzie, a homesteader's wife left completely alone in the remote cabin. As the wind howls through the open plains, she starts to believe something unseen is watching her. Or maybe it's already inside. The film masterfully builds paranoia and dread, making Lizzie question whether she's being haunted by an evil presence or simply losing her mind from the crushing loneliness and isolation that she's witnessing. Instead of pagan rituals or small villages, the wind turns the vast emptiness of the frontier into a claustrophobic nightmare. The landscape is so empty, but somehow it feels like something is always there. Overshadowed by bigger folklore hits like The Witch, The Wind is a slow burning descent into psychological terror that deserves way more attention. And there you have it. Folk horror from its eerie origins to 5 underrated films you need to watch. Which folk horror film has stuck with you the most? Are there any hidden gems that I need to check out that you're like, no, this is an underrated film, Kayla, that you need to add to your watch list? Let me know in the comments below. I'm always on the hunt for more eerie nightmares to watch. Like and subscribe and hit that bell for more horror deep dives. And you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Cafe Crashdown for extra spooky content and behind the scenes horror discussions. And remember, never break the ritual, never ignore the warnings, and whatever you do, don't go into the woods alone.